Kristen here, sports dietitian, certified personal trainer, and founder of Elite Nutrition Performance. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about how to put together a fueling plan or a meal plan for yourself. This is a big question I get a lot. I get people calling me all the time saying, hey, I just want a meal plan. And the thing is, if I put together a meal plan for somebody that's a day-to-day eating, Monday eat this, Tuesday eat this, it really never works out for people. And the reason why is because people have schedules. They have different things that happen in their lives. For example, if you want to go out to eat with a friend or a spouse, a boyfriend or somebody, family member, and it's not on your list, well, what are you going to do? Or, maybe I put on that list, okay, eat chicken for this meal, and you're just really not feeling chicken for that meal. People tend to go off the rails with the meal plans. And so if you can learn how to put together your own plan specifically tailored to you, it's going to work a lot better, and you are going to be more likely to adhere to your own plan. But let's also not forget that when we create a plan, we want to plan with an open hand. And what that means is we're not so tight-fisted on our food, meaning that we can't eat anything else that somebody else has prepared. We need to have all that control over our own food, or that we can't go out to a restaurant because we don't know what food is in there, or what kind of oils that they used, or did they use too much sugar, or whatever the case is. Or we can't have something that is prepackaged because it seems like it has a lot of fat in it, or it seems like it has a lot of calories. We want to be able to be flexible with our food, and that's part of what we're going to be talking about today is how to create a meal plan, but also how to incorporate that flexibility. So this is going to be specifically for female athletes, and female athletes are definitely going to be different from male athletes in the sense that we're not going to require quite as many calories as, let's say a high school male athlete would. And also we have different things that happen in our lives, like a menstrual cycle, and that is going to change how we feel, both physically and emotionally, and that's going to change what we eat. Raise your hand if you, when you're on your period, wind up craving more carbohydrates or sweets. There's a reason for that, and the reason is because your body just spends more energy going through that whole menstrual cycle, and so most people are not accounting for that. They're not eating more during that time, so they wind up actually craving sweets because that's your body's way of saying, hey, I need more fuel, and this is the quickest way to get it. So there's going to be varying differences like that, and then also we're going to talk about how to make your meal plan different based off of your training load. So we don't want to focus so much on calories. We really want to focus on what your activity level is, and then also how you're feeling. And that's, figuring out that intuitive eating side of things. And if you have not listened to any of my episodes on intuitive eating, I highly recommend going back and listening to those, because that's going to give you a lot of insight for today if you're not familiar with intuitive eating. So first of all, we want to think about what your activity level is, and certainly that's going to change day to day, right? So if you have a heavy training day, let's say you are a track athlete and you are running sprints that day, but you also have a leg workout, weight training workout on top of that, you're going to want to eat more because you're going to have a heavier training day, as opposed to a day where, let's say you were, just doing yoga, or you went for a walk. It was like an active rest day, okay? So your needs are going to vary depending on those factors, how active you are one day versus another. So what I'm going to show you or talk about is how to balance your plate off of these different things. So if you're watching the video, you'll see this. If you are on the podcast, you will not see this, but I will explain it. So I have a nice little drawing here where you have a plate, okay? It's not a very pretty plate that I drew out, but it's a plate nonetheless. And your protein is always going to make up a quarter of your plate, no matter what training level you're doing, okay? So this is a plate for an easy day. So a quarter of your plate is going to be protein, a quarter of your plate is going to be carbohydrates, and then the other half of your plate is going to be filled up with fruits and vegetables, and you're always going to have fat in there as well, okay? You're never going to eliminate fat, especially as a female. You need fat for hormone production. So quickly, let's just kind of recap here. If you don't know what carbohydrates do, carbohydrates is your body's primary source of energy. That is the first thing that your body's going to use for energy, and it's also the only thing that your brain can run off of as far as glucose, or it's going to be glucose. That's the only thing that your brain's going to run off of. You also need carbohydrates for glycogen, and that's the storage form of carbohydrates in your muscle and your liver. So if it's going to be an easy training day, you're not going to require a lot of carbohydrates because you're just not expending that much energy. So you don't require that much fuel, particularly from carbohydrates. So a quarter of your plate is going to be sufficient as far as carbohydrates go. So carbohydrates can be things like bread, pasta, rice, potatoes, sweet potatoes, or regular potatoes. Could be quinoa, it could be oatmeal, muffins, granola bars, cream of wheat, grits, beans, all those kinds of things. Anything that is starchy, those are all going to be considered your carbohydrates. So that's going to fit into this quarter of your plate right here. Protein, we're not getting much energy from protein, just about 20% of our calories, 2% of our calories max. So it's a really small amount. So proteins are, like I said, always going to stay the same because we need that to maintain our muscle mass, our cells, our blood, our hair, skin, nails, all that kind of stuff. Our bodies are constantly being broken down, so you need protein. So protein, this would be roughly about the size of the palm of your hand in terms of protein, and carbohydrates here, a quarter of your plate is probably going to be like what fits into like the cup of your hand or like a fistful, okay? So proteins are going to be any type of meats, eggs, cheese, dairy, tofu. Beans do contain protein. They're going to be both carbohydrates and protein. So, like I said, that amount is going to stay the same. Fat is also an energy source. It's a secondary energy source, secondary to carbohydrates, but it's a more long-term energy source. So we need it for energy, but we also need it for hormone production. And so this is really important that females are getting, I like to say, at least 60 grams of fat per day. That might sound high to some of you, but that's really where we need to be minimum. And so on an easy training day, really adding like a teaspoon or two of fat to your meal is perfectly fine. And then the rest of your plate is going to be filled up with fruits and vegetables. So your fats are going to be anything like olive oil, avocado, nut seeds, nut butters, things along those lines. Or it could also be butter, it could be, bacon, sausage, things along, any type of high fat meat, okay? So fruits and vegetables, like I said, that's going to fill up the other half of your plate. So this is what an easy training day would look like. And all you're doing here, this is really simple. Some people might think this is too simple, but you are literally just plugging in the different categories on your plate for each of your meals. This plate represents one meal. This is not representing your entire day, okay? So you're just saying, okay, for my protein, I want steak. Okay, done. For my carbohydrate, I want a baked potato. Great. For my fruit and vegetables, I want broccoli and some strawberries. Okay, good. And then for my fat, I'm going to have a little bit of butter on my potato. There you go. That is your meal. And you do the same thing for the rest of your meals. Now we're going to look at the other plates here. So if you are in a moderate day of training, so this would probably for most people be most days of training, okay? So a moderate day of training is going to be, now you're increasing your carbohydrates to about a third of your plate. And your protein stays the same, a quarter of your plate. Your vegetables is also going to be a third of your plate. Now we've moved off your fruit over here and your fat. Your fat has also increased. So everything has increased. And again, we are just simply plugging in what we want here, but we're just having more of it, okay? So for your protein, maybe for breakfast, you want to have some scrambled eggs and a couple slices of bacon. Fine. That's going to count also towards your fat. Your carbohydrates, maybe you want to have a couple slices of toast, like 2 slices of toast, and then you're going to have an orange there for your fruit. And your vegetables, either you can have vegetables at breakfast, you want to scramble in some vegetables to your eggs, great. If not, then go ahead and just add a little bit more fruit or a little bit more carbohydrates, and we can call it done. So you get the idea. We are just basically plugging and playing here with our meals, okay? And again, thinking about intuitive eating, what do we actually want with our meals? So we don't have to stick with some type of ideal of clean eating or whatever we think that we have to be eating. We can take literally the foods that we like to eat and we are just plugging them into that plate, and we are just arranging our plate into a way that is going to be representative of the amount of training we are doing that day. So let's say you have a competition day or you have a really hard training day. This is going to be what your plate's going to look like. Half of your half your plate is going to be carbohydrates now. It's because, again, more energy is needed. We're going to have even more fat. We're going to have like a tablespoon or two of fat, probably more like 2 tablespoons of fat added to our meal. Our protein is still going to stay the same at 1/4 of a plate. Our vegetables is now only 1/4 of a plate to make room for all those carbohydrates. You don't want to fill up on on vegetables here. You need to make room for all those extra carbohydrates. So this would be like 3 fistfuls of carbohydrates, whereas on a moderate training day, it's going to be more like 2 fistfuls, okay? And then we still have our fruit over here. So again, we're just kind of plugging in what we want here, depending on, you know, whatever we're feeling for that particular meal. So let's say it's lunchtime. You need a lot of carbohydrates here, okay? So let's say we're going to do a quinoa salad. So we're going to have maybe a little over a cup of cooked quinoa. Then we're going to throw some chicken into that quinoa. We're going to chop up some cucumbers and some tomatoes and some onions. That's going to be our vegetable. We're going to throw that in there. Then we're going to add some olives. That's going to give us a little bit of fat, but we're also going to add like a tablespoon of olive oil and some vinegar to our quinoa salad. That's going to give us our fat. And then we're also going to add some feta cheese to that. That's going to give us a little more fat, a little more protein. And then we're going to have a nice banana on the side. That's our fruit. And there you go. You have made your complete day, okay? So one thing I do want you to think about here is, I mentioned, you know, males and females are going to be different because of different things like a menstrual cycle. I mean, that really makes a huge difference. And so if you are on your period and you are noticing that, okay, I'm just more hungry and I need to eat more because I'm more hungry, and then I'm also craving sweets, what I want you to do is basically bump up your plates. So if you are on an easy training day, then I want you to bump it up to a moderate training day in terms of your plate. So instead of eating 1/4 of your plate carbohydrates, eat 1/3 of a plate of carbohydrates. But if you're on a moderate training day, then I want you to actually increase it to a hard training day, which is where 1/2 of your plate is going to be carbohydrates. And you can really play around with this. You know, this might be in the beginning where you need to do this, and as your cycle kind of continues on, you can taper that out and go back to your other plates. Again, really paying attention to your body and how your body feels and kind of getting in tune with that is really the best thing to do with all of this. So if you feel like this is still not enough, like I need to know the numbers, exactly how to put this together for myself, that is something that I teach in the Sustainable Sports Nutrition Academy. And I highly urge you to go check that out, because you can join that for just $1 to try it out, see if it works for you. But I explain how to figure out what your macronutrients need to look like specifically for you and what your goals are. But I do talk a lot about this plate method, which I find is very easy, and it really takes the pressure off, and you don't have to wind up, you know, tracking everything that you're eating, you know, using some type of calorie counting program, that type of thing. But like I said, if you want those exact numbers, I highly suggest that you check out the Sustainable Sports Nutrition Academy, and I teach that in detail in that course, how to put together that plan for yourself, and then what foods to put in there if you feel like you need more ideas. So I really encourage you to, like I said, check that out. It's only $1 to join. And thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions, or if you have any ideas or topics that you would like me to cover in the future, please just drop that below in the comments. I really would love to hear what you have to say, and I would love to you know, talk on some topics that you would like to hear about in the future. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.